any chapter like the Quran, or 10 chapters, or the whole book if they want to do so. Because people have failed, are failing, it's demonstrative of the Quran's claim that it's a revelation from God. Because any book can be imitated. Any works of human beings can be imitated. But the fact that the Quran is composed in such a unique way, in an objective way of looking at the composition, and people still failing to imitate it, replicate it, then it shows you what the Quran is claiming to be is true. That it's from God, a revelation. Because God is making a clear demonstration that it cannot be from anything other than God.
So I got a bit confused by what you're saying here.
Which part?
So maybe I might just not understood something. What do you see? What do you mean by replicating this context?
Exactly.
Sorry.
Exactly. So a book of God must somehow convince people, if it's claiming it's from God, that it's from God. We're talking about a book in which there are words and letters, sentences composed in a particular order, and have the contents with information. So this book must provide us some way, in an objective way, that indeed this is from God and not from a human being or a collective of human beings. This is what we expect. So there has to be something in this book that gives us the way to determine that it's from God. One of the ways of determining is when the Quran says it has been given to this prophet, composed in such a way that no human being can actually imitate it, replicate it.
So do you mean imitate like the manner of its composition, or do you
manner of composition? Because
do you like its like grammatical style, or
if you say something like, "Oh, bring something beautiful like it," then it becomes subjective. Because subjective cannot be an assessment. Because to you it may be something very high, to me something not very high. So it cannot be an objective way of establishing that is from God or not. When the Quran tells us bring something like it, and when we go and examine the Quran and we realize the Quran is in such a composition that is structured in some way in language that people cannot use that language to make anything like the Quran, any composition. Because the Quran is not poetry and the Quran is not prose, but it has informational content. When people are going to imitate a structure to bring information like it, they fail because that structural way cannot be used to actually be meaningfully imitating it. For example, if I say I are going, you'll say, what kind of language is that? You should say I am going. You don't say I is going. Yeah. Ate me food. What kind of language is that? I eat food. So we're talking about composition of the language to have a meaning, right? The Quran, the way it's structured, if you were to imitate its stylistics, that's what it comes down to, stylistics, and apply that to a different context with a different words or concepts, it becomes like this gibberish. It doesn't make sense. But the Quran, in its current composition, the way the language is used, is the most eloquent, even attested by non-Muslims, Arabs, because the Quran is an Arabic language. Let me give you an example, analogy to help you, because you may not be a linguist. Because you may not be a linguist. You see that building over there, the red building? Over this one here. The building. It's made of bricks. Now suppose I said, I'm an architect and you're an architect, right? And I said, my building is unique. You can't replicate like my building. You'd say, look, we both went to the same university, got our doctorate, and we became the architects, right? Studied architecture. Of course, I can make the one anything like you can make. Why can I not? But I said, look, come closer to my building, have a look. And you see my building, every brick of that building is floating in space from the other brick, not touching each other. If you saw my building like that, and I said bring something like it, make a building like mine, would you be able to do it?
Okay, no.
You can't do it, because it's not with the current technology, with science and gravity and all these tools, to make a building like that. We can make rail tracks and trains going, not touching it. You know what those like magnetic, electromagnetic rails? They don't touch the rail track. We can do something like that, but we haven't got the technology yet to compose a building like this where each brick is floating outside in space. The Quran is such a composition. It's made of letters and words of Arabic language, but composed in such a way, the overall structure of a chapter or a surah of the Quran is such that you cannot imitate it. That's why the Quran, from the way it was revealed, it started challenging people. If you don't believe it's from God, simple, try to falsify it. That's not from God. That's one way of doing it. Of course, there are other falsification tests, but this is one of the main ones in which people can see from themselves, by themselves, whether the Quran is from God or not. Because any human composition can be imitated. Shakespeare can be imitated. Beethoven can be imitated. They can be imitated. We can know their stylistics and we can imitate it. But the Quran,
The Bible cannot be imitated. The Bible is built up in the structure with numbers, time, and words.
give me an example of a Bible that cannot be imitated from which chapter. I can do that maybe right now or a week later.
The Bible is full of hidden messages. Inside of every single prophet, there's a hidden message.
When you say hidden message, that's not something objective assessment, is it? Something is hidden is not objectively measurable.
I can show you how it's in a system.
Do you see the problem?
When
You are introducing, listen,
see the same number.
you are introducing a criteria of objective assessment, but something is hidden. That's not objective assessment. You can't use objectivity like that.
Words, numbers, and time. The number 10 is in every prophet. That number 10, you'll have to move it out of time to the right position in time, and you will see a hidden message. If you do that by every single prophet, you will see a hidden message in every single prophet. That's something yet you cannot do by
Subjective.
man. What? You don't
Subjective.
see that message. It's there.
That's what I'm saying. It's
It's in the
subjective.
Bible. It's there.
It's
I can
subject.
prove it.
It's
I have proved it all day.
Okay. Let's engage with him. Right. Okay. Are you a Christian or a Jew?
I'm a born again believer.
Do you believe
Christian.
it? New Testament believer, right?
You, the whole Bible.
Whole Bible. Good.
The whole Bible.
So now, this is why the problem is now with this kind of approach. I want you to be engaged with this as well to understand. So the first gospel of the New Testament is called Gospel of Matthew. Matthew writes this gospel and he says, these are the generations from Abraham to David, from David to the exalted, from there to Christ. And he says, these are all the generations. Yeah? 14 plus 14 plus 14, 42. You can make your own of the symbolic hidden messages, but from the very first page, you will disprove the Bible by, do you know why? Because all the generations were not 42. Matthew is making a statement which is a lie and a historical distortion of the truth of history. Because in history, there are more than 14 generations, more than 14 generations overall. Matthew takes some of the names out to make this kind of symbolic language. David equals to 14, right, in this numerology, but to what expense? To the expense of truth and reality. He distorts history and makes his genealogy 42 generations when there are more than 42. Now, how we expose his distortion is going back to Chronicles chapter 3, and we read the names and we see some of the names. This is shocking. Some of the names he removes from his genealogy is very important names. One of the names is Jehoiakim. So you have Josiah begets Jehoiakim and the brothers Jeconiah and the brothers. Josiah, Jehoiakim, Jeconiah. What Matthew does, he takes the name out Jehoiakim from the middle, he makes Josiah begets Jeconiah and the brothers. The grandsons becomes the sons. The reason he takes him Jehoiakim away from this genealogy, because the biblical God elsewhere says in Jeremiah that Jehoiakim will have no one to sit and claim the throne of David. But Matthew wants to make Jesus to be the son of David, right? To claim the throne of David. So what he does, the one who's cursed in this genealogy, he takes the name out and he thinks Jesus can fit now the genealogy, he can be the son of David. But this person, anyone that comes through him, like Jesus Christ, cannot be the son of David. So what he's done, he removed the name because he realized it's like shooting himself on your own foot by making this genealogy up. Giving a genealogy to a man who has no father, he gives him a genealogy anyway. By doing that, he demonstrated to the whole world that he's a liar and a deceiver, a distorter of historical reality, by making the history fit his particular theological motive. But he gets exposed by the Jewish people, not me. I didn't. One second, I'll give you the time to respond. I didn't bring this up. I didn't investigate this. The Jewish people themselves exposed Matthew. When they said, look, Matthew said this, but in reality, this is false. This is a historical distortion of the truth. So Matthew has been exposed as a liar. Now, your mathematical numerology, symbols, hidden messages makes no sense when this is a clear evidence of distortion by the gospel writer. What do you have to say for that?
When you go to that part of it, it's not about the hidden message. We are talking about the genealogy going from Joseph or going from Mary. Which way do you want to go? So that's the way they go back through Mary or through Joseph. That would be two different stories. But that's not the thing I was talking about.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about.
Stunning my argument.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Stunning my argument.
I wanted to go to the prophets.
Wait.
Adam and forward.
Relax.
Okay.
What was my argument?
Are you there still? I tried to tell you something.
What was my argument?
What I'm saying to you, you're trying an argument about something that's not the question. I'm telling you.
How can I have an engagement with you?
I'm telling you, in every single prophet from Adam forward, the number 10 is in Adam. The number 10 is Noah. The number 10 is in Abraham. In Joseph. How?
Yeah.
You don't see it. It's hidden. I'll show you. Yeah. You don't see it.
So, is it objective or subjective?
All day long to people this day. I can explain it to you now.
Maybe expect the pigeons over there. I mean, I don't see the utility of this kind of hidden messages.
You don't see it? Why would Moses have 10 commandments when love is enough? If you love your brother, you will not.
How many commandments does Noah have? How many commandments did Noah get from God?
Noah?
Yeah.
Adam, 1 commandment.
Noah.
That was a commandment of building an ark.
How many commandments?
No, he's got a message of building in the number 10.
I'm going to continue discussion with him because you don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, so the Quran gives falsification tests, and one of the falsification tests is bringing a chapter, a surah like the Quran, imitating it, replicating it. People to this day, they know it's not possible to do that. Even ChatGPT, when I tried and gave him the conditions, it says it's not possible. Yeah? Because the condition is such that you have to be within this objective criteria, the stylistics. So no human or artificial intelligence can bring something like it, because whatever is brought will be gibberish. Because, as I said, I am going or I is going, I are going. It makes no sense grammatically. So like, what kind of language is it? So I have to change the language altogether from English to something else. So the Quran gives information and it tells you this is something you didn't know. Now we realize information that Quran gives is actually astonishing. People, no way they could have known it. It's impossible for them to know. For example, shall I give you examples? Quran talks about Oceanic waves, not the surface waves, but waves within the deep oceans.
Oh, actually, one thing I'll just say for a moment. Okay. Right now, if you're about to bring up like scientific miracles,
contents information which is something that is amazing. So one who's critical in their thinking should be able to rationally and coherently explain how does the Quran describe oceanic waves when the technology wasn't there available at that time to know this. Because you can't simply go in a deep ocean and say, I can feel the oceanic waves. Because these waves are on the surface. They're deep inside a deep ocean. You can't just go without a submarine or this gear to go down in the oceans to see them in the first place. You need modern technological tools to know this. It's not a scientific miracle claim. It's a content and information in the Quran which is really deserving of a coherent, rational explanation from a critic. If they don't believe this information is from God, then explain to us rationally, how did the author of the Quran have access to this kind of knowledge?
So you're describing something to do with the waves deep in the ocean, you're saying?
Yes. Deep sea currents, that's how they're known as.
Okay, so deep sea currents. So it's basically what you're saying is that the Quran contains information about deep sea currents that they wouldn't have known back then, is what you're saying?
The Quran talks about it. I am saying this information. There is a reason. It's okay?
Just a bit back.
Okay. So the Quran contains information, talks about these kind of things. We don't find any culture, any people talking about these things. So you need to now explain, how does the Quran have this kind of knowledge?
Right. Okay. So, right. Actually, no. So, right. Okay. So, now I guess a lot of the things you've brought up there are things I don't really kind of have personal kind of much knowledge into. But I mean, I do have to see. Okay, if we bring up the one about the deep sea current, so okay. So I've not kind of looked into this. However, one thing I have seen. So, do you know David Wood? Yeah, David Wood. Do you know David Wood?
The one who eats like a goat, the paper.
What?
The one who eats like a goat. He eats paper like a goat.
I don't know if he.
I don't know. Are you talking about this guy? A guy on the live TV or YouTube things. He ate the Quran like a goat. The paper, real paper of the Quran. Is that him?
Okay, I don't know if he did that. I don't know.
Maybe another guy. Anyway.
Okay,
so what about this guy that you're talking about?
So I think I saw he was doing a video. So David Wood was doing a video. I think addressing someone called. There's this Lily, someone who converted to Islam. Can't quite remember the surname, but so there's this young woman who converted to Islam and was giving. I think this kind of this kind of like I think this kind of scientific style arguments in defense of the Quran. And one interesting thing is that David Wood he points out that even Ali Dawa admitted that the scientific miracles argument has been debunked.
What does he know about science, Ali Dawa himself?
Sorry?
He was here today, you can ask him. What does he know about science? Has Ali Dawa studied science?
I've not looked into the details of this. But
so this is where the problem is. Just because a popular YouTuber says Quranic science miracle has been debunked, and you think, there you go, Quran has no science, is rather silly. Do you know why? Because the person that you're bringing, he doesn't even understand what science is. He's learning about certain things here and there. I am not going to defend someone, for example, or make a claim on his behalf. I'm simply saying Quran has information content which is talking about natural phenomena of the world, deep sea currents. We need now, from the critics of Islam, if they don't think Quran is from God, we need them to coherently explain. Coherently. How does the Quran know about this information? How does the Quran accurately talk about something of the history when history itself is this kind of full of blunders? Like the time where Joseph was living. The monarch was a pharaoh, and the Quran says no, he was a king. The Bible, the historical material available that we have, the biblical history, and the Bible says he was a pharaoh. We now know through our understanding of Egyptology that the monarchs at the time of Joseph, within the time frame, were not called pharaoh. So secular history has disproved the Bible and shown that the Quranic description of this is correct. But how did we know about this secular history? Because hieroglyphics was not known at the time when the Quran was revealed. Hieroglyphics was recently rediscovered. So now you are telling me that the Quran has information which was known to the ancient people, and yet they got it wrong. So how does the Quran correct this without knowing hieroglyphics? Are you now going to tell me the Prophet knew science, hieroglyphics, astronomy, biology, astrophysics, all of it? You believe that he's everything apart from a prophet of God. That's not very rational.
Right, okay, so now the things I'm going to admit that okay, with a lot of these things, they're not things I've looked into, and so there may be other people who would be more qualified to speak on a lot of these things than I am.
No problem.
But one thing I would say is that so in a nutshell,
we finished now.
in a nutshell, my issue with Islam is that it's essentially a revisionist religion.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, basically, right. Okay, so we think about this, right? So obviously there are a lot of religions in the world, and one might want to try and decipher which religion is true. Now, one thing which now one thing we can say about if we start by considering the Old Testament revelation. So the Old Testament,
full of mistakes and errors.
The point is that I'm gonna kind of give a defense of the Old Testament.
Yeah, how can you defend the errors and mistakes within it?
The things is, so your claim it's got mistakes.
If it's a revelation, you expect this is definitive knowledge. It should not contain mistakes and errors. Do you agree?
Yeah.
So how, and contradictions, how does it have all of these kind of mistakes? Let me give you Okay, let me give you an example, but some information content which doesn't make sense to me. Do you know why we have rainbows?
I've already got a guess as to where this is going.
Do you know why we have rainbows, according to the Bible? The Old Testament?
Okay, so I'm already guessing you're going to be committing a false dichotomy.
Hang on. Instead of engaging with the discussion and trying to contribute towards it, you're thinking about it, I know where I'm going to go. You're going. That's not how we have conversation.
Okay, fine.
Fine, good. The reason God put a rainbow in the sky is because it's a token or a sign of a covenant that God made with Noah.
Okay.
Yeah? That every time God is about to destroy mankind again, when he looks up at the clouds and he sees the rainbow, then something will happen, and then there will be no wholesale destruction of mankind. Now, my question to you is this.
Okay.
Who does the rainbow remind? Human beings who forgets the covenant, or God who needs reminding? According to the Bible. The Old Testament.
I actually can't remember the exact wording, but I guess
who do you think needs reminding? Human beings need reminding, or God needs reminding?
Well, let me. She thinks the exact words in the Bible are not.
No, you don't need to remember.
Okay,
but think about it. Who needs reminding? When I look at the rainbow and God looks at the rainbow, who needs reminding about what the rainbow signifies? Is it human beings who are forgetful, or is it God?
Okay, so
what do you think needs reminding? It's a simple question, and there's a simple answer. Who needs reminding? Human beings. Who needs reminding? God or human beings? Human beings. So God doesn't need reminding. Why doesn't he need reminding? Because he is all-knowing. He doesn't forget. Right. The Bible says, God says, so that I will remember. God, I will remember.
Okay.
So, does that tell you God is someone who knows everything, or God forgets? He needs reminding.
Right. Okay. So, in fact, that wasn't quite what I was imagining, but that's fine. Do you
now see the problem?
Right. Okay.
The massive problem of a book describing about. One second, because we have to wrap up. Go. A book describing about God, but not describing God in His reality. It's actually misrepresenting God. God is all-knowing. The book makes God forgetful. That God needs reminding by a rainbow. That information cannot come from God, because God will never tell a people, "Oh, I need to be reminded by something because I forget."
Right. So, I think that's It's the thing is, I think part of what's happening here is that actually, I think how do I explain this? Right.
Wrap this up in 2 minutes. We have to go. go. Okay, go on.
Okay.
Countries, United Nations, from the way it's been.
Yeah. Yeah, I said 2 minutes to wrap it up and then go to it. Do you want to say your last few
Okay,
statements?
so I think we shouldn't. Okay, so we shouldn't interpret this in. I'll say we shouldn't interpret this in an overly kind of humanly literal sense. In other words, this isn't literally saying that God is forgetful and therefore needs reminding. Rather, it's. I think rather we should see this something as being symbolic.
Of what?
So it's kind of like effectively right. Perhaps we could say kind of symbolically, it's reminding God, but not in the sense of it's not in the sense of it's not okay, yeah. It's not in the literal sense of lest he forget, in the literal sense of forgetting, but it's but as a kind of as a symbolism, it kind of symbolically serves as effectively like a kind of like a continual witness that God is not going to.
What does it symbolize?
It symbolizes
What?
I say it symbolizes God's promise never
To himself?
like.
Okay, so thank you for what you said. I'm going to just wrap this up very quickly now. The same God says to the human beings, oh, look what they have done. Look, mankind has settled in one place in the land of Shinar in the east, and they're speaking the same language, and they're building tall skyscrapers. Now, nothing will be impossible for them to do. Let us go down and confuse them. This kind of picture is well known in the ancient Near Eastern texts. In Mesopotamia, yeah, in Ugarit, Acadia, Babylonia, in all these areas, there was this belief that if you build tall skyscrapers, go up to the heaven, you can overthrow God. That's exactly what we see in the Old Testament. God looks mankind united in one language, building tall buildings. He says nothing for them. Whatever they imagine to do is impossible. So what he does is he comes down and confuses them, and that's why you speak English now rather than the language of Adam or Abraham. Yeah. Okay. So God confused them because he wants you to be disunited. In contrast, the Quran says God created men, right? Nations and tribes in different languages and colors, not to despise of each other, but they should recognize each other. And the most honorable one between all is the one in the sight of God who is the most righteous. So this division of ethnicity, language, color is actually a blessing from God that we should recognize each other. Imagine I am Mansur, right? Imagine he was Mansur and look exactly the same. Same complexion. He was Mansur. You are Mansur. You are Mansur. You are Mansur. How do I know who's the real Mansur? He would not be able to recognize him. So our differences is actually a mercy from God that we are able to recognize each other. Ah, brother Abdullah, brother Razi, brother Haidar, so on and so forth. Yeah, do you understand? That's how we recognize. But the Bible tells you a different picture, which is not coherent, which is not meaningful, which seems that it's not coming from God. That's what I'm saying. Quran, if you read it, you will see that this message resonates with your heart and mind, that indeed it's a message from God. Anyway, nice talking to you because we have to go. Take care. Okay?